All right, it's out. It's out, everyone. The Nintendo Switch 2 has launched. And I think with all the discourse online about the Switch 2, I think this has to be one of the most controversial console launches in recent memory. I mean, Xbox Series X, you could say, oh, well, there's a lot of people that didn't like that one. A lot of people didn't buy it. Yeah, but there wasn't really this big of a momentum or even hype for it. You know what I mean? Like it was a more powerful Xbox. That's all it was. It was a new Xbox. There was nothing really there with expectations. I mean, Xbox has been kind of dying a slow death since Xbox One. And that one, it's just, whatever. It's a new Xbox. If you're an Xbox fan, you'll get it. If you're not, whatever. It's fine. PlayStation 5, there was just mostly hype. There wasn't really a whole lot of negative backlash about the PlayStation 5. And if you look back at most console launches, they're just kind of, it's mostly hype. It's mostly people that are very excited about the system, and the people that get it are just talking about the games and the graphics and what they like and the things that they want improved, stuff like that. The Switch 2 is fundamentally different when it comes to the discussion. I'm just going to clear up the title, the clickbaity title. This is not the worst launch of all time, okay? But I think this is more of the most controversial, most divisive launch in recent memory. And that's for a lot of key things that Nintendo now stands for and Nintendo is doing with the Switch 2. Not necessarily the system itself, but also kind of, because the Switch 2, if we're looking at it just from a quality and video games perspective, is this the worst launch of all time? Is this the worst Nintendo system ever to have launched? I don't think so. I think the worst launch, if we're looking at just home consoles, not like the Virtual Boy, which was just why? If we're looking at home console releases, I think the worst launch is probably the Wii U, just because it had like Nintendo World and New Super Mario Bros. U and Zombie U. Like those were like the three games that were only on that system. The rest were like third-party games that were put on there with slightly worse graphics, sometimes worse frame rate, and then occasionally the weird Wii U gimmick. But we're not looking at those. We're not looking at those, okay? We're looking at what Nintendo is putting out for the system, and I think the Wii U had the worst launch just because the big tentpole title was New Super Mario Bros. U, and New Super Mario Bros. Already existed on the Wii, and the U version wasn't that much better. Yeah, it looked better and it ran better, but it's like the same game. Now, you could kind of say that about the Switch 2 if you really want to. Let's look at what are the games that are only on the Switch 2 and put out by Nintendo. So, only on Switch 2, we have Mario Kart World. Is that it? Is that really it? No. Okay, not looking great. We're not going to include the paid tech demo video game console manual advertisement as a game, even though you can pay for it. But if we include that, I feel like I almost have to take away points from the system's launch than give. But at least with Mario Kart World, it has new levels, it has new characters. They're changing the way the game is played. They added new mechanics. You could argue some of these things with New Super Mario Bros. U, but I think Mario Kart World is going to have a lot more like lasting power, a lot more replayability than New Super Mario Bros. U did. That game, you play through with your friends a couple times, you dig it out every couple years, you have some fun, couch co-op, that's great. But Mario Kart World is going to be a game that sticks around for a bit. Nintendo has really embraced live service games, whether you like it or not. Splatoon, I think, is the perfect example of the live serviciness of a lot of Nintendo games. And if you look at the last Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for the longest time it was just Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but then they came out with that giant, massive amount of levels that they added onto it. And I think we're going to see the same thing here. We're going to see lots of releases of new levels, because this is going to be Mario Kart for this system for the next 8 years or so. This is the Mario Kart. So what you see right now is just the beginning of what that game is going to be. Now, you could argue about pricing. You could argue about a lot of different things about that game specifically, and I'm right there with you. Now, if we're looking at the price of it by itself, $80 is ridiculous. It just is. I mean, if we look at the graphics, yes, they're better, but it doesn't feel like this massive jump to a new generation. It just feels like kind of what the Switch should have been to begin with. Like, it feels like games running smoothly should have always been the default. So when I'm seeing Breath of the Wild sell for like $70, I'm just scratching my head like, really? Like, we're doing that? $70? $80 for Tears of the Kingdom? I think that's another reason why we're seeing such a big backlash during this launch. Because, I mean, I'm one of these people, obviously. I did not buy the Switch 2. I'm not going to be buying the Switch 2 for probably several years, because this is just like the Wii U. I waited for the Wii U to become a better value proposition. Same with the 3DS. I did not buy the 3DS at launch, because when it came out, it was $250. And then when they dropped that price to, I think it was like $170, I was like, okay, you know, that's a lot more affordable. There were a lot more games that released for it at that point. And I wasn't just jumping into a system with, I think Super Mario 3D Land was the game that was like big for the 3DS when it first came out, and that was about it. So I wanted to wait for there to be a bigger library. I wanted there to be a better value proposition, and I feel like that's what a lot of people are thinking with the Switch 2. It's not a terrible launch. It's not the excitement that there was for the Switch, because we're no longer going into something brand new. We're going into something iterative. It's like the Wii to the Wii U. The Wii to Wii U, again, it was not like this massive change. It's like now we just have a powerful-ish Nintendo home console. It's not something revolutionary. And the Switch was. The Switch was finally like, oh, wow, this is so cool. When I first saw the Switch, it blew my mind, okay? I thought it was such a neat idea. I still love the idea of it. I still love my Switch. And having your home console be at home and on the go was just something that was so novel and unique and interesting. And the price point was $300. It wasn't that bad. It was cheaper than the competition. And that's the thing that Nintendo has done for a long time. Nintendo has always tried to position themselves as the cheaper, more affordable option. And I think by doing that, they always made themselves the secondary console that people own. Now, there are a lot of people that only own a Switch, but people that own an Xbox or own a PlayStation or are primarily PC gamers, they will pick up a Switch as their secondary platform because they want to play Nintendo games. And because of the affordability, because of what they were priced at, and I mean, they even had the Switch Lite, so it was even cheaper if you're just playing on the go, you don't care about the home console part, it's even more secondary of a system. That was wonderful. You could get into that ecosystem for a very affordable way. Now, $450, you're out of it. You're out of the price range. Yes, they have changed the price of Xbox and PlayStation 5 to somehow now make it the cheaper option again, because of tariffs and other nebulous things, but I still see PlayStation 5s for $450 with games included. I still see Xboxes on sale. Like, these things still go on sale, whereas Nintendo systems, they really hold on to that price point pretty much the entirety of their life if it's doing well. Now, the Wii U did not do well, the 3DS did not do well, but the Switch pretty much held on to that price point throughout its lifespan. Now, $450, I mean, if you're going to hold on to that price point, you're no longer just a secondary option you can just pick up without really thinking about it. You can't just go, oh, well, I'm obviously going to get the new Nintendo system because I want to play the new Nintendo games. Now it is an actual financial decision. Like, $300 is not something that you take lightly, but it's like another 50% increase on top of that. That's a significant increase. And when you look at what you can play right now, for people that own a Switch like myself, I don't really see the reason to buy it. Now, if you didn't own a Switch already, maybe it's a different value proposition. Maybe this is the way to go, because yes, it is expensive, but you still have that entire massive Switch library that you can play right now, and a lot of games do have free updates, but there are also games with paid updates, unfortunately. But you do have that massive backlog to play. I wanted to be excited for this. I really did. I don't hate Nintendo. I hate a lot of what they're doing and what they stand for now, and I'll get to that in just a second. But I really wanted to be excited for this launch. I really did. I was hoping, I knew it probably wasn't going to happen, that they were going to do a 180 in the price after enough people said, hey, drop the price. $80 is ridiculous. We're not going to pay that. $450, I kind of get it. Tech is expensive. This is a brand new system, but it's not an OLED screen. So it's kind of going backwards for the Switch I have already, which is a nice, bright, beautiful OLED screen. I know the Switch 2 screen looks good, but leaves a lot of people like me wondering, well, when's the Switch 2 OLED going to come out? Because that's the one I'm going to get. I'll get the Switch 2 OLED years down the road when it's some like Zelda edition or whatever it is. I can wait. And I feel like a lot of people can as well, especially at that price tag. I'm a lot less likely to fall for the FOMO, which I definitely did feel. Don't get me wrong. Seeing everybody excitedly buying this new system, everyone clamoring to get it and how difficult it was, and all these different FOMO triggers were going on in my brain. And I always want to get the new console because it's a fun experience. It's fun to get swept up in the hype. I really wanted to. But if I thought about it for 5 seconds, I don't play my Switch 2 enough to justify buying a new one. I don't want to play Mario Kart World bad enough to spend 500 plus tax. The more I thought about it, there's essentially one game that I would really want to play on the Switch 2 because everything else I own everywhere else. And yes, it's a great improvement for Switch owners that only have the Switch and couldn't play Cyberpunk and all those other games that are much more graphically intensive on their Switch. But now with the Switch 2, it's great. They have that, but I have always had that. So for me, the giant upgrade for the third party isn't really. So it's essentially one game and that's it. And I couldn't do it. And plus, let's get into the more nuanced issues I have with Nintendo. I've discussed them in previous videos, but I just want to quickly go over what is going on with Nintendo. And I feel like it's something that needs to be addressed because it really shows how Nintendo has changed. The leadership has changed. It's no longer gamers. It's no longer people passionate about games. Now the Nintendo leadership, Nintendo of America, EA. He's from EA. I don't need to say anything else. That's where Doug Bowser is from. That's a huge red flag. And then Nintendo of Japan, that president is from accounting. Very money focused, not a gamer. So we've got two non-gamers now in charge, whereas before Iwata was a gamer, Reggie was a gamer. It's just a completely different company now. And it's a shame because I love what Nintendo makes for games. I really do. I know some people are sick of them. They're like, oh, they're overdone. But I think Nintendo really does put out quality games. Their first-party titles are phenomenal 9 times out of 10. But with this new leadership, we're already seeing drastic changes. They're no longer targeting the widest audience possible. They're no longer targeting families. They're no longer targeting people that want to have this as a secondary console. Now they are showing it and selling it as a luxury product. And they're treating it as such with the price tag on the system itself because they are taking a bigger profit margin than a lot of the other companies do. Because most of the time when you're selling a system, you're selling at a loss because you want the people in the ecosystem because that's where you make the money. You make it on microtransactions, you make it on digital purchases, you make it on the games purchases. You're not really looking to make a bunch on the consoles themselves. But Nintendo this time, they are. The game pricing. I don't know if you noticed, but on the Switch, they really didn't drop the price of games. I think the lowest I saw games get to was like $40, maybe sometimes 30, but rarely did we ever see games drop down to $20? If you look at the Wii U, Wii, GameCube, all the way back, they always had value price games. Once they sold a certain amount of copies, the Player's Choice or Nintendo Selects or whatever they called it on that console would come out, and it was a discounted game. And it made the systems more accessible, it made gaming more accessible. And I think that's part of why they grew their audience so large. They made gaming accessible. Now, they don't really drop the prices, so they want you to think that their games are worth more than everything else in the market. If it's got Mario or some other Nintendo character on it, you're gonna have to pay the premium. There's gonna be that Switch tax, like we talked about, a lot of people have talked about with Nintendo Switch. Even when like multi-platform third-party games got on the Switch, And like, Witcher 3, for instance, like you got the complete edition for $20 on the PlayStation 4. It's on the Switch, re-releasing $60. Switch 2, now they're raising the price. They're not only keeping games from going on sale, they are now raising the price to $70 and $80, pricing out more and more people. They realized on the Switch they could charge for online gameplay, despite the fact that how many games are even online with the Switch? Let's be real. I mean, Splatoon, Mario Kart, Smash Bros, there's not that many games. And the feature set they have for their online platform is pretty terrible. Now they finally have party chat and they acted like it was some big feature, and then they monetized a button on the controller and the system because you have to pay for that subscription to use party chat, so that button is completely worthless unless you spend $5 a month. Nintendo is no longer for gamers by gamers. Now it's just like every other company. It's the executives trying to raise that stock price by making as much money as they can off of you as possible. And it's a shame, I'm not saying Nintendo has been perfect before this. Hell no. They've been very litigious, going after ROM sites constantly, trying to take down emulators, doing everything they can legally to take out anything that could be even perceived as a threat. Even if it's just a fan-made game. They've really gone out of their way to piss on their own fans. And it's a shame to see people that are so excited about their products and intellectual properties and characters and worlds just constantly get shit on. And I felt like I was able to kind of just put that out of my mind for the longest time, because at least they didn't have microtransactions, at least they didn't have loot boxes, at least it doesn't have this, at least it doesn't have this. Just because the rest of the industry was so bad that no matter what Nintendo was doing litigiously, they still looked like the better company out of all of them. But now, with the Switch 2, they have completely lost all the high ground they had in that regard. They're just as expensive as everybody else. In fact, they're more expensive, and they're pushing that ceiling higher, which is another problem I have with the system and the company. And it just feels like they've stopped caring about you as a customer and view you as a consumer. You're just a wallet now. And I'm not okay with that. So I'm hoping something changes down the road, but I don't foresee that happening unless this thing does turn out like the 3DS and the Wii U, actually, where it sells out at launch. People are like, the super fans get in, they're very hyped, they buy them up, and then after that, we see a massive drop-off. Could happen. I don't know. But if you are excited about your Nintendo Switch 2, that's great. Have fun with it. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't have fun with it. I'm not telling you you don't have to listen to me, okay? It's your money. You make your own financial decisions. I'm just kind of airing out what's going on, why there's drama at all over a console release, and why, to me, I'm disappointed that I can't be excited for the system, because I waited at midnight for the Switch. I was so excited for it. I am a big fan of Nintendo. Like I said, I love their games, but it's disappointing to see them go the same route as everyone else. I wanted them to continue to be different, and it felt like that's what they used to do, and they've strayed away from that. It's a shame. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the console launch down below. If you think it's the worst console launch, and I'm wrong. And of course, like the video if you guys liked it. Subscribe for more content. Check out my live stream on Twitch. And as always, have a fantastic day. See everybody.